Hola, beautiful and handsome people all over the world. This is Jana and I'm back again with another video. For today's discussion is gonna be about motor carriers. And to deepen your understanding about this, please continue watching because I will discuss to you the substantial contents to help you conceptualize everything you need to know about motor carriers. So, without further ado, let's go straight to our discussion. Allow me to begin with our learning objectives. After reading this, you should be able to do the following. First, understand the development of motor carriers and their contributions to the economy. Next, be familiar with the different types of firms in the motor carrier industry. Then appreciate the market forces shaping the motor carrier industry. Also, gain knowledge of the service characteristics of motor carriers. And identify the different types of vehicles and terminals used in the motor carrier industry. Then, understand the impact of fuel and labor on the motor carrier cost structure. And lastly, be aware of current issues facing the motor carrier industry. So, here are the topics to be discussed today. You just stick with me and I'll explain everything as we go along, alright? Okay. Now, what is a motor carrier and why it is important? For you, what do you think is the significance of a motor carrier in our economy? So, to answer that, a motor carrier is an asset-based trucking entity that transports property for compensation. It owns the assets and is primary on the insurance for the freight they move. It is very important because a motor carrier is able to increase or decrease the number of vehicles used in short periods of time and in small increments of capacity. Here are the different types of carriers. Let's differentiate first for hire versus private. When we say for hire carrier, it provides services to the public and charges a fee for the service. However, when we say private carrier, it provides a service to the industry or company that owns or leases the vehicles and thus does not charge a fee. But obviously, the service provider incurs cost. For hire carriers can be either local or intercity operators or both, okay? So it may be common or contract operators. When we say common, it serves the general public upon demand at reasonable rates and without discrimination. But when we say contract, it serves specific shippers with whom the carriers have a continuing contract. Thus, it is not available for general public use. Contract carriers also typically adapt their equipment and service to meet shipper needs. Shippers must choose to use a commercial carrier or to operate their own private fleet. Trade-offs exist for both options, but of course, it will ultimately be determined by the needs of the shippers. Truckload versus less than truckload. Truckload offers service to the shippers who offer enough volume to meet the minimum weights required for a truckload shipment and a truckload rate, or will pay the difference. But on the other hand, less than truckload provides service to shippers who tender shipments lower than the minimum truckload quantities, such as 50 to 10,000 pounds. For the line haul, or what we call intercity movement, the less than truckload carrier must consolidate the numerous smaller shipments into truckload quantities and desegregate the full truckloads at the destination city for delivery in small quantities. The truckload carrier, on the other hand, picks up a truckload and delivers it to the destination. A heavy less than truckload is a type of carrier that is hybrid. The shipment sizes carried by this type are on the higher end of what we call less than truckload shipments. It uses consolidation terminals to fully load trailers but does not use break-back facilities for deliveries. Heavy less than truckloads delivers from the trailers similar to a pool carrier, charging line haul rates plus a stop-off charge. It specializes in shipments that are smaller than the truckload carrier's haul, but larger than a less than truckload carrier's haul. Less than truckload operation. Shippers for small use less than truckload carriers and have a shipping requirement. For example, the cubic capacity of a 53-foot trailer is not needed for the shipment. In addition, the less than truckload shipper usually has shipments going to more than one destination. A pickup and delivery vehicle from the LTL carrier collects the shipments at the shipper's dock. A pickup and delivery vehicle returns to a consolidation or breakback facility after collecting and delivering shipments. Market structure. For hire and private motor carrier vehicles, primary transport manufactured high-value products, food products, and manufactured products, consumer goods and industrial goods are all included. Almost all sheep, lambs, cattle, cows, and hogs were sent to stockyards. Commodities like grain, primarily those non-ferrous metal products, motor vehicles and equipment, and paper and allied products are transported less. Rail and water are usually less expensive for such commodities because they must move long distances and in large volumes. You know, truckloads might not require terminals, but may use the shipper's plant for loading and consignors plant for unloading. Typically provides dispatching, fuel, and maintenance service in truckload terminal. Some provide restaurant and hotel to give their drivers alternatives to truck stops. These terminals are for drivers and equipment, but not freight. But heavy less than truckload carriers use terminals for loading or consolidation. So we have three types of terminals: the pickup and delivery, the breakback, and the relay terminal. When we say pick-up and delivery, it is also called a satellite or end-of-the-line terminals. It serves a local area and provides direct contact with both shippers and receiver, provide pick-up and delivery of freight on pedal runs. Next is breakback. Breakback's main purpose is to provide an intermediate point where freight with common destinations from the pickup and delivery terminals is combined in a single trailer for movement to the delivering pickup and delivery terminal. Breakback facilities also serve as a driver domiciles. Line haul drivers might or might not be able to return home after a trip, depending on the length of haul they are assigned. Last one is a relay terminal. At the relay terminal, one driver substitutes for another who has accumulated the maximum hours of service. When using terminals in a carrier's network, a variety of operational considerations must be taken. Carrier management must examine the strategic consequences of these decisions in addition to making them. When we talk about number of terminals, how many terminals is a clear question for a less than truckload motor carrier. It depends, is the obvious response. First, the carrier's intended level of market penetration and customer service will influence the number of terminals to be established. In principle, the better the service, the more terminals closer to the consumer. In practice, this has also shown to be accurate. Realistically, adding more terminals will eventually result in no incremental improvement in service and may even detract from it. Second, the conflict between a tiny terminal and a long pedal must be resolved. Next is the location of terminals. Closely related to the decision of how many terminals to establish is the decision of where to establish them. As previously mentioned, for airlines and railroads, this decision can be relatively simple because of geographic, government, and demand variables. Cost structure. The difference between a fixed and a variable cost is that the variable costs vary based on the amount of output produced. Variable cost may include labor, commissions, and raw materials. However, when we say fixed cost, it remains the same regardless of production output. Therefore, the cost structure of the motor carrier consist of high levels of variable cost and relatively low fixed cost. We also have daily operating cost. These are the variable cost of fuel, wages, maintenance, and highway fees. Let's say, for instance, the fuel tax, the vehicle registration, and such. But labor and fuel has the largest share of the variable cost. Economies of scale. Under economies of scale, we have 4: the operating ratio, funding, safety, and technology. When we say operating ratio, it is a measure of operating efficiency used by motor carriers. It is very important because it measures the percent of operating expenses to operating revenue. Next one will be funding. Highway users such as truckers and car owners pay for the building, maintenance, and enforcement of roadways through user fees. The overall amount of taxes paid is determined by how often the highway is used. The motor carrier pays a fee for using the highway, which is proportional to the length of time it is used. This scenario is due to the motor carrier's large variable cost structure. Third is safety. Improved safety can lead to increased profitability, according to certain members of the motor carrier sector. Due to costly claims for lost or damaged products, increased insurance premiums, accidents, penalties, and other factors, safety deficiencies can result in lower profitability. These implications aren't limited to the motor carrier sector. In fact, they extend to all modes of transportation. Last one is technology. Satellite technology has a significant influence on the trucking sector. Satellites are used to monitor vehicles as they travel from point A to point B using global positioning technology, or the GPS. Satellites allow carriers to determine the position of a vehicle and communicate that information to customers. The driver's contact with a home-based computer through an onboard computer allows for route or arrival adjustments in the event of bad weather or road conditions, and these adjustments may be conveyed to consumers. Alright, we are down to our last topic, which is financial stability. We all know that financial stability is a condition in which an economy's mechanisms for pricing, allocating, and managing financial risk are functioning well enough to contribute to the performance of the economy. But what if there is overcapacity? But before that, allow me to define overcapacity. When we say overcapacity, it is a finite amount of freight to be transported. And it also leads to severe pricing pressure, which can cause weaker carriers to exit the market. And when a carrier goes out of business, the interruption of service could have serious consequences. Okay, I guess that would be all for today's discussion. I do hope that you learned something new from it. Thank you so much for actively listening and have a great day, everybody.